Good day, everyone. This is Russ Siegel with Premier Entrepreneurship Group, and we're going to spend some time today talking about something very near and dear to my heart, and that is taking a small business idea, a hobby, an interest, a passion, something that really excites you and makes you want to get out of bed every day, and turning that into a business and deciding if this is really a money-making opportunity or if it's something that maybe just needs to stay a hobby. I'm a big fan of turning hobbies into businesses, but I'm also a big fan of making sure you don't ruin a perfectly good hobby by turning it into a business. So we're going to go over some things today that will help you decide if maybe this is something you need to do, and if you need to pursue it. We'll also talk about some ways to get started and make sure that you make the most of your opportunity. So let's jump right in. Why do most people start businesses? A lot of people want to use their skills and abilities and feel strangled or throttled in a 9-to-5 job. And by the way, these are listed in order of some of the surveys that I've looked at. You'll notice that earning money, or more money, is way down at the bottom of the list. People really do want to be freed to do the things that they've learned how to do, that they're good at, and to be able to turn those into opportunities that ultimately lead to the stuff at the bottom of the list. They want to take control over their lives. You know, if you're working for somebody else, you are at their behest. You are under their control, so to speak. They tell you when to show up, what to wear, when you can take a lunch break, when you can get away from your desk and leave for the day. And a lot of people, like me, have control issues. They want to have full control over their time and their life. And starting a small business and thinking about turning a hobby or an interest into a small business is extremely appealing for a lot of people. So they also want to build something for their family. Folks see that the whole concept of job security just doesn't even exist today. My father worked for a company for 46 years. It's almost unheard of these days. And so when we think about retiring, when we think about leaving something for our children, a legacy, we think about starting a small business. What is that thing that I can teach my children, that they can teach their children, and that we can leave behind for future generations? We also like challenges. Sometimes that desk job that you've had, or that trade that you have been a part of for years, loses a little bit of its steam, and things become rote, and we find ourselves doing the same thing over and over and over, day in and day out, and we start to stagnate. This is why professionals have to go through continuing education every year. You know, even brain surgeons and orthopedists have to take some continuing education every year to challenge them, to teach them new techniques. And for most people, what better way to attack a challenge than to start a small business? If you look at my area of the country, which is Western North Carolina, people don't move here for the transportation hubs or the high-speed internet or the scads of trained, skilled workforce. They move here because of the pace of life. They move here because of the surroundings. They want to live here. And if you take a look at this picture, you know, somebody like a one-person fishing guide wants to live and work where and how they like. And what better way to do that than to take matters into your own hands and control your destiny by putting yourself in a situation, in an area that is exactly where you want to be. Sometimes we feel like we can't do our best work working for someone else. Again, it's that throttle, that set of handcuffs. We have ideas, and those ideas don't get implemented, and sometimes those ideas don't even get heard. If you look at studies over the last 40 to 45 years, what do employees want? Bosses have consistently said they want more money, higher compensation. Employees have consistently said over that time that they want a chance to do their best work. They want to have their creativity unleashed. They want to be heard. They want their ideas to be accepted and implemented, or at least tried. And so when you're in charge, when you live and work how you want and where you want, and you're able to take control of your life, it gives you an opportunity to do your best work. And of course, earning more money is important. The cold, hard reality is that most people who start small businesses don't make more money, at least in the short term. So we have to get comfortable with the notion that we're going to have to really work at this. Your small business may need to replace an income. Your small business may need to supplement an income. So what does that mean to you? Well, that gets us to the big question of what's your why? Why do you want to do this? Does your interest or does your desire fall into one of these categories that we've just talked about? Is it something else? Maybe you just want to have some supplemental income that will pay a child's way through college, or supplement your retirement, or pay for an extra vacation each year. Whatever it is, you've got to determine your why. Why do you want to do this? I'll make this promise to you. Your why has to be more than making money. Making money is just a yardstick. It's a tool for measurement of your success. But it can't be your why. And the reason is, if money is your ultimate goal, you'll never be satisfied. There will always be something else you need to do. So do you want to spend more time with your family? Do you want to involve your family in your business? Decide right now what your why is. Write that down. Make sure that you put that in a key location so that you can look at it. Use that as your motivation. If your why is that this time next year I'll be able to leave my job, quit, take early retirement, go to half-time, work in some other remote arrangement, or whatever that might be, go ahead and write down that why. Set that up as a goal for yourself so that you can refer to it often, because you're going to be more likely to attain that goal. Good. Let's take just a second and talk about some important stuff here, because I want to just make mention of a few things that the IRS is concerned about. If you're going to take a hobby and turn it into a business, maybe you want to do this because of the tax breaks or the deductions that you might be able to take, and hobbies can get very expensive. The illustration here is photography, but fishing guides is on the last slide. Some of these require equipment and a lot of overhead, and so it can get very expensive, and the ability to deduct some of those expenses from your taxes becomes a very appealing incentive. So what we want to make sure of is, if you're taking a hobby and you're turning it into a business, that you don't run afoul of IRS law regulations. There's only about 86,000 pages in the tax code, and so there's a good chance that we're going to slip up and miss something. But these are the highlights that the IRS looks at. There are others, but these are the main things they want to know from someone who is turning a hobby into a business. Do you put in the time and effort you need to turn a profit? Is this something that you're going to work on an afternoon a month, a weekend a month, 2 or 3 weekends a year, just when you're on vacation? Or is this something that you're going to do on a consistent basis? One of the recommendations that I would make to you is that if you are transitioning your hobby into a business, start to track your time. Keep a diary, keep a logbook, keep a calendar, keep something that gives you a record of how much time you're spending on this. Because if the IRS believes that you're still treating this as a hobby and you're deducting expenses, there's going to be problems. So just make sure that you have some way of proving that you're trying to turn a profit. Now, do they care if you ever make a profit? Not for a while. I mean, if you're doing this over, say, a 5-year period and you've not turned a profit in 3 to 4 of those years, they may be concerned, but they want to see that you're at least making an honest-to-goodness effort for this to be a business. Have you made a profit in this activity in the past, or can you expect to turn a profit in the future? again, profit has got to be your driving motivation in making this a business. So here's a little definition for you. Write this down, because especially some of you hobbyists out there will need to remember this. If it makes you money, it's a business. If it costs you money, it's a hobby. So make sure that you keep your eye on the profit motive. Do you possess the necessary knowledge to succeed at this? There are a lot of things I would love to try. It doesn't mean that I have the necessary knowledge to succeed as a business. Maybe some things I don't even have the knowledge to succeed at as a hobby. But are you getting educated? Are you proving that you are moving toward certifications or some level of expertise? I know a fellow who his hours were cut back at work. His small business started to suffer. He said, I need to learn another skill. I need to learn how to build websites. And so he spent about 6 months watching YouTube videos, learning how to write code for WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and he became quite proficient at these things. And so what started as a hobby for him, he was able to gain the necessary knowledge to succeed, and he's doing quite well. But you've got to be able to show that. Do you depend on income from this? Now, that's a pretty straightforward question. If you depend on your income from this activity, you probably make the case that this is a business. If you don't, then what are you doing with the income? What is your motivation? It goes back to your why. If you don't depend on the income from what you're doing, what are you doing with the income that you generate? So just make sure you have a way to track that back and say, yes, this is more than just a hobby. And then my favorite question, are your losses beyond your control? In a hobby, if you're a model airplane enthusiast, you can go out and spend a lot of money and make sure that you spend more money than you make. Sometimes, if it's a really cool hobby, you can spend more money than you have. And there's some high-tech hobbies that require a lot of equipment and so forth, and I've got a couple of those. So you can actually control how much you lose. Well, if you have a profit motive, you're going to be a lot more careful with how you spend your money. You're going to want to show that you're at least trying to earn a profit. And if you lose money by losing a bid, or your estimates are not on point and you're losing business that way, or people don't rehire you because you do a bad job, well, that you're going to make the argument that that's within your control. But if there are things that are beyond your control that are causing you to lose money, then you can make the argument that this is indeed a business. So just keep these things in mind to make sure that you stay out of trouble if you're looking at turning a hobby into something that could be a money-making venture. Now, we have to ask the question, do you have what it takes? And I'm going to give you 3 areas to look at. Number 1 is you, and number 2 is your market, and then number 3, the different resources that you have available to you. Just keep in mind that the more you know about these 3 things, the more you focus on these 3 things, the stronger your business is going to be. I'm a big advocate of getting your financial house in order before you start a business. I just want to make a note here that starting a business, especially a small hobby-based or home-based business, is not going to be your ticket out of financial demise. So if you have financial problems now, don't expect your small business to pull you out of the fire. So let's start taking stock of all of the things that you have available to you and all of the things that you're capable of. So what I'd like for you to do is take some time, write down the different skills that you have. It's very important to remember that all of the skills you possess, you can employ those in different ways. And it may be that you've gained skills in other areas, so that it may not even be related to the business you want to start, or you don't think it is. But maybe it is. Maybe you've learned some sort of management skill or an organizational skill or a sales skill or something in a past life that you can bring to the table in this business. Aptitudes. What are the different things that you've learned? Maybe you have some certifications. I've always said that I don't do electricity and I don't do plumbing, but I'm a pretty good painter. So if the bottom fell out of my world tomorrow, could I earn a living painting? Well, I do have that aptitude. I tried to save money in my first home, and I had a very good, kind, and compassionate painter who said, look, if you want to save some money, you can help me paint your house, but you're going to have to learn how to do it. So you don't want to be painting like all those Lowe's and Home Depot commercials. You want to learn how real painters do it. And so he taught me those skills. Do you have the time necessary to make this a business? Now remember, do you put in the time and effort you need to turn a profit? Do you have the time, the energy that it's going to take to make this a real business? If you are taking care of children full time, if you're taking care of a sick spouse or a sick parent, or if you have other obligations, there are things that are out of your control but within your authority, so to speak. You're going to be committed to a lot of things outside of taking care of your business. So just keep in mind that you're going to have to be able to allocate some time and some energy to this. What is your education? Do you have the education and the experience that will make this a success? I know a lot of folks who majored in history and have become very successful in business. I know a lot of folks who majored in engineering and became CEOs of companies. When they were in college, their education was about the technical stuff, but their experience moved them closer and closer to the role of executive. So what have you done that you can then apply to your own business? It may be something you've never thought about. So sit down, make a list of all the things you're good at or remotely good at. The next 5 things are going to be things that this is a way that the world is going to look at you, in particular, lenders. And remember, I said that starting a small business is not necessarily going to pull you out of the financial fire. And so you have to get your financial house in order prior to starting any kind of business. And the 5 C's here that you see are the 5 C's of credit. This is how bankers, lenders, investors look at you when you ask for their money. And now, even if you don't have to borrow money, I want you to keep in mind that it's going to take some of your own money. So is your money better spent investing in you, or is it better off being invested somewhere else? So if you can look at these 5 things and say, yes, if I were an outsider investing in this business, it would be a good deal, then you're ready to go. So the first C is character. This is generally determined by your credit score. It's a 3-digit number. You can go to annualcreditreport.com and you can pull up your credit file. You can see what you've borrowed money for, how you've paid it back, and your character simply says, are you the kind of person who pays your obligations? If you're not, then maybe your suppliers or landlord or anyone else who you're going to be doing business with would be interested in that. So make sure that your character is good. There are ways to improve your credit score. So if you have a really bad credit score, and by bad, I don't mean, a couple of dings. I mean something in the 500 and below range. Lenders are not going to give you a second look anyway. So take time to improve that number. You're better off spending a year to 2 years improving your credit score, putting yourself in a better situation and a better position to start a business than if you just started now and hope to pull that up as you go. Number 2 is capital. You have to look at the amount of money you are willing to risk. And I have a lot of folks who say, well, I don't have any money, but I've got a lot of stuff. We're going to get to the stuff. But think about it this way. If you need to borrow money to start this business, even if it's just from your best friend or a rich uncle, they're going to want to know how much you are putting at risk. Nobody else wants to take the full risk. They want to see that you're willing to put something in and you've got some skin in the game, because if you don't, why should they? Number 3 is your capacity. Yes, hobbies are fun. Interests are fun, but eventually they've got to pay the bills, and so we have to look at something called cash flow. Is the business going to generate enough cash to pay its bills? Now keep in mind that if one of your goals is to leave your current job and start a business, you've got a double whammy to deal with. not only does the business have to pay its bills and pay you a little bit, it also has to replace the income you're giving up. So make sure you can prove that the business has the kind of capacity necessary to pay its way and to pay your way as well. Conditions. What does the economy look like in terms of your industry? How friendly has the economy been to businesses like yours? Is your industry in an upward trend? Are things moving in the right direction? Is it moving positively? Or are things dying? If you were wanting to start a newspaper, I might advise against it, because even newspapers are trying to get out of the newspaper business these days. But if you're on the bleeding edge, on the front edge of a wave that it looks like it's going to be a good long-term trend, and the economy is pretty friendly to your industry, then maybe the conditions are right. Let me just say this too. Keep in mind these three things. That even in a tough economy, even when the Great Depression hit, and we were mired in the Great Depression in the mid-1930s, people spent money on three things. People want to eat well. Even if it's just occasionally, they will spend money to eat well. They want to spend money to look good, and this is why the personal appearance industry, personal improvement industry continues to do well. And they want to be entertained. So if you fall into one of those categories where you can help people eat well, look good, and be entertained, feel good about themselves, then that's a home run. Now, keep in mind that even if you don't have capital, you may have collateral. Collateral is at the bottom of the list, and for good reason. If you're going to ask a lender to take your stuff, if you quit paying the bills, that stuff is worth a lot less to them than it is to you. So you want to make sure that your stuff is not just worth something today, but that your stuff will be worth enough in, say, 5 years if you were to stop paying the bills. Most lenders now are looking for 100% to 120% collateralization on loans. So again, all of these things make up your financial picture, and it gives other people a picture of, do you have it all together? Are you bringing something to the table that's worth investing in? Now, you also have to look at your market, and the market is a two-edged or two-sided coin. Your market it consists of customers and competitors. Now, there are really only two ways to fail in business. One is if you don't have a market. If there's no one out there who wants to have to sell, then you're going nowhere. The other is if you stop trying. Now, if you can't find a market, but you're still trying to find a market, you may still be in the game. So never give up. I know a lot of folks who want to turn a small hobby or an interest in or a craft into a business, and they just run into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. But they keep plugging ahead. They keep going. Those folks are going to be okay, because eventually they're going to find their market. So let's talk about the two sides of this coin. If you are a hobbyist and you're looking to turn your hobby into a business, look no further than the mirror. What do your customers look like? They probably look a lot like you. How many of them are there out there? Are there enough of them who will pay you to keep you in business? Where are they? Can you get to them? Can you advertise to them? Can you communicate with them? Can you ship to them? Or is your business one where they need to come to you to get the product or to have access to the service? The word profile in recent years has gotten a really bad rap. But I want you to be able to profile your customers. I mean, profiling is a legitimate exercise. When we think about criminals who commit heinous crimes, they exhibit certain characteristics, and this helps law enforcement be able to find them, to catch them. Your customers, your market exhibits certain characteristics. Can you define what those characteristics are? What makes those people tick? How do they make their decisions? how much money do they have? How much disposable income do they have? How much time and energy do they have to spend on the things that you have to sell? And how can you attract them? Things work together to craft a message that says we can now contact these people with a message that resonates with them, and it's probably going to be the same thing that enticed you when you started in that field. What really gets you excited? Give it the email test. It's what I call the inbox test. If you look at your inbox, if you're a typical email user, you've got some things in there from friends and family. You've got some things in there maybe from work. You've got some newsletters or some special offers from catalogs. Maybe you have some follow-up offers from something you ordered online. Look at your inbox and take a quick scan and say, what really excites me? What can I not wait to open? And every time I get something from these people, I can't wait to open it. But when I get these other emails, I just delete them without reading them. Well, the ones that are really attractive to you and that you can't wait to open, maybe there's something there that you can learn from. What are they doing that you can employ to attract your customers? Now, on the other side of the coin, we've got to be concerned with our competitors. How many of them are there? If there are a lot of competitors, that could actually be a good thing, not a bad thing. This is why a lot of industries cluster. You'll see in some cities, they will put auto dealerships together on the same strip, because they know if you're going to test drive a Hyundai, you may also want to test drive a Toyota and test drive a Nissan and test drive a Ford and a Chevy, and just work your way down the line until you decide what you want to buy. And fast food restaurants do the same thing. This is why Wendy's is not afraid to go in right next door or across the street from a McDonald's, because McDonald's has already done the legwork and they've said this is a good place to locate. It's going to be a good place for many years. And so Wendy's just uses that information. And just think about it this way: a rising tide raises all boats. So having lots of competitors may actually be a good sign that there's a positive trend in the industry. How big are these competitors? Where are they in relation to you? Maybe you're a little bit closer to your customers than they are. Maybe you're a little more accessible. Maybe you're a little closer, or maybe it's a little easier for you to ship things, and you can move a little faster, and that's okay. What are they good at? What are they not so good at? You can never build a business by shoring up your weaknesses. You can learn how bookkeeping is done, but it doesn't necessarily make you an accountant, and you don't have to be. Sometimes learning that language is enough to get you through. What you need to do is think about your strengths. How can you capitalize on those strengths? And what are your competitors' strengths? What are they doing to capitalize on that? And so in that regard, competition becomes more judo than football. You know, in football, you're hitting each other head on, head to head, boom. In judo, you're using your opponent's energy, so maybe you don't have to hit them as they come at you. You just sidestep them and let them go by. So what can you do to capitalize on your strengths, to get around their strengths and capitalize on their weaknesses instead of yours? How can you differentiate? There are really two ways to compete. One is to compete on price. That's a downward spiral. It's very dangerous to try to compete on price, and we'll talk a little bit more coming up. But the best way to set yourself apart is to differentiate, to do something different, to do something better. And let's face it, if you're not here to do something different, to do something better, why are you here? Why would you want to start a business that becomes just another run-of-the-mill and you have to struggle all the time to find customers? Differentiation sets you apart and makes you more attractive to certain subsets of your customer base. What resources can you bring to bear? Are there people out there who can help you? Again, a rising tide raises all ships. There are people out there who want to help you and are trained to help you. A coach is someone who will teach you, will stand beside you in terms of helping you learn the technical stuff and moving your business forward. A mentor, however, doesn't even have to be in your industry. You know, in terms of a coach, if I want to learn basketball, I want a basketball coach, not a hockey coach. I want somebody who's trained in that industry. A mentor does not have to be even in your same industry. A mentor might be somebody who has just walked a path a few feet ahead of you or a few yards ahead of you. You know, if you're starting a business and you're going to have employees, you may have a friend who has had employees for years. Well, having employees comes with some of the same challenges no matter what industry you're in. So having somebody like that as a mentor would be a huge advantage for you. Professional associations. Folks, there's a professional association for everything. There are trade associations out there. In fact, you can go to your local library, and I recommend going to the library or to a college library because this is a pretty expensive publication, and they usually have access to this. It's called the Encyclopedia of Associations. They can have an association for your industry, and you can also just simply Google your industry and the word association. See if there's something out there. Even if you have to pay to join these associations, it's money well spent. I promise you. They're going to send you so much information, it's going to be well worth the price of admission. Do you have friends in the business? Is there somebody else who's already doing this who will take your hand and guide you along the way? Some people don't want to approach other folks who are in the business because they feel like they're stepping on their toes. Well, if you've done a good job defining your market, defining your customers, and deciding who am I going to go after, it may turn out that somebody in the same business is going after a different group of customers and would be more than happy to help you out. You also have local professionals. Maybe your community college has a small business center, or your university has a small business development center that's sponsored or funded through the Small Business Administration. Maybe your town has a Small Business Administration office. Or SCORE, which stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives. SCORE is the largest volunteer group of small business counselors in the world, and about 12,500 of those folks who have been there and done that, and all they want to do is help you. Find where those people are. Go to those local professionals. In most cases, your tax dollars are already paying for them to do that work. So use their services, use that expertise. You know, learning from your own mistakes is great, but learning from someone else's mistakes is even better because it's a lot cheaper. You might find that you have business support professionals. Do you have accountants? Do you have an attorney? One of the best business support professionals I ever had was my next door neighbor. He was a banker for a major bank. He was a vice president, and he told me some hard truths. Now, a lot of times the conversations we had were not supportive and feel good, and they didn't boost my ego. But everything he said to me needed to be said, and I needed to hear it and act on it. So surround yourself with people who can tell you what it's all about. And then don't forget your customers. Are you leaving a job where you're going to be bringing customers with you, or you have access to customers? Sometimes if you're unhappy with your company, your customers may also be unhappy with your company. Now, there's an ethical line that you need to walk here. You don't want to steal your boss's customers. I deplore people who take their employer's email list or their employer's customer list and use that to start their own business. However, if you're an attorney, if you are a shoe repairman, if you're a dry cleaner, you know, people who come in to see you, you can tell pretty much, are they there for the business or are they there because you're there? A lot of times they don't even want to talk to anybody else if you're not there. They want to make sure that they have an appointment with you, and it's perfectly legitimate to take your customers with you. But don't forget that your customers or your future customers are also a wealth of knowledge. You can ask them what you need to do to get started right. What about your industry really chaps their hide? What makes them unhappy about businesses like yours, and how can you do it differently? Sometimes just by asking the question, you can get them interested, and they will be a huge benefit to you in terms of telling you which direction you need to go. Sometimes success in business is not wrapped up in what you do. Sometimes it has a lot to do with the things that you avoid. So let's talk about some common mistakes that small business owners make. Number one, trying to be all things to all people. Remember when I said go back to your why. When you find your why, find that one thing that you do really, really well. It's the Kentucky Fried Chicken thing. When Harlan Sanders looked back on his life, he was 65 years old. He could take his couple $100 a month in Social Security and retire. This was in the 60s, and he said, I've got too much left to give. I don't want to do this, but I can't do everything. I want to figure out what's the one thing that I do better than anyone else. And he said, I fry chicken better than anyone else. And that's what he did. In fact, when he sold the company and they came out with the extra crispy, he was furious. He couldn't believe that they were doing something besides his original recipe, because he really believed in finding that one thing to do really, really well and stick to it. Small business owners, by nature, believe they have to do everything, but too much do-it-yourself can cause you to waste time. You really have two components of your time that I want you to focus on. One is your productive time. This is the stuff that you do, the activities you engage in that make money. It's not the going to the bank, going to the post office, picking up supplies. Those things have to be done, but those are unproductive. So in your business, find things that you can do to maximize your productive time and outsource the rest. Let's face it, this is why a lot of us had kids, so we'd have somebody to sweep the floor and file things. So, of course, if you know my children and word ever gets back, I'll deny everything I just said, except that this is being recorded. So it's probably not a good idea. But really, we want to focus on the things that make money. What are the activities that you can outsource, that you can offload, that you can let someone else do for you? Sometimes you can look in the classifieds in the newspaper. You can look at websites like Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. You'll be amazed at all the different things people are willing to do for $5 that will, they can do it in 5 minutes and it would take you 2 or 3 hours. So don't be afraid to spend a little money. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. Another business killer is over-optimism. Over-optimism causes a lot of the other stuff, because if you think that you're bulletproof and if you think that nothing's ever going to happen, you think that this is going to be just great and rainbows and unicorns, you set yourself up for a lot of disappointment, but you also set yourself up for potential failure. Back to the money thing. Money, it always comes back to the money. Undercapitalization can be a huge mistake. If you think that it's going to cost you $5,000 to do this, ramp it up and really start this business, but you've only got $2,000 in the bank, you'd better find that other $3,000. Don't bootstrap on that $2,000 and hope to shake that extra $3,000 out of the sofa. It's not going to happen. So make sure you're fully capitalized. You have enough money to make it. For goodness sake, understand that this is going to take time. I mean, the IRS states that they expect it to take time. And if you don't have the time required, then you may want to scale back. Now, if you've avoided the first thing on the list, then this thing is not going to be that big a deal. When you stop trying to be all things to all people and stop trying to be hot dog stand, upholstery shop, shoe repair shop, lawn mowing operation, then you will find that the time required gets very, very focused. But like I said before, don't ruin a perfectly good hobby. In fact, if you're taking a hobby and turning it into a business, you better find another hobby, because that hobby is not going to be for fun anymore. Your fun motive takes a back seat to your profit motive. So find something else that you can do to get away, to relax your mind, to free yourself up, to enjoy your time. Because as much as you enjoy turning your hobby into a business, you still have to have another outlet. You have to have some way to get away from it. You've probably heard that failure to plan is planning to fail. Well, yes, failing to plan is a big mistake. But failing to follow the plan that you write is just as big a mistake. Now let me throw another plan problem at you. It's the hidden problem with business plans, and that is, if you are a detail-oriented person and you write this plan and then you follow it to the letter, that could be a big problem. Your plan should give you the flexibility to grow and to adapt and adopt new things and change. And if you stick too closely to that plan, sometimes it will inhibit your growth. So, number one, plan. Number two, follow the plan, but don't follow your plan to the letter so that it keeps you from doing all of the things that could really turn this small business into a breakout business. Everybody needs a shoulder to cry on. You need somebody who will offer you some support, even if it's just an ear that you can bend and you can complain and commiserate. Now, I say peer support here rather than just support. Yes, your spouse, your family members, they're going to be fine for support. But you need to find somebody like a mentor or a coach who understands what you're going through as a startup, as an entrepreneur, as a boss, so that you actually have somebody on the same level who gets you, and they will actually offer more support than just people who want to pat you on the back and say, they're there. The ultimate mistake that small businesses make when they move from their garage to Main Street is continuing to just play at it. It was a hobby, but now it's not. You've got to focus in on the business part and get rid of the hobby language. You've got to get rid of all the stuff that was fluff. Focus on the money. Show me the money. So stop playing at business. Get serious about it. Open up a business checking account and all that good stuff that you have to do to maintain a real business. Ultimately, you have to ask, why are customers going to buy from you? Again, there are only two ways to fail: if you don't have a market and if you don't try. So take some time. Figure out your one thing. Whatever that one thing is needs to do one of two things. You either have to solve a problem or you create a good feeling. If you can do both of those, you've hit a home run. I'm doing this webinar on a PC, but I love my Mac and I love my iPad and I love my iPhone because I think Apple has done a marvelous job at solving a problem, which is making frustrating computers easy to use and accessible to people who don't know a lot about computers. And even my mother can operate an Apple product. So it solves a problem. But it makes us feel good because, number one, it's really cool design. And if we can operate it, heck, if my 7-year-old nephew could pick up an iPhone for the first time and know exactly what to do with it, that's a pretty good feeling because now we have command over that technology. So you have to take your one thing and answer these two questions. These are at the core of why people would buy from you. What problem are you solving, or what good feeling are you creating? You know, Disney World is not the best theme park. I'm sorry. I've been 7 times. If you're there to ride roller coasters, if you're there for the thrill rides, if you're there for the food, you're in the wrong place. But if you're there for the experience, the good feeling, you couldn't be in a better place because they have that down cold. They've got the experience. And they also solve a problem, because where are you going to go for vacation where you get everything for one price and you don't have to leave? Well, you either go on a cruise ship or you go to Disney, because once you're in the park, you can stay, you can play, you can eat, you can be entertained, you can exercise, all the things that you want to do on a vacation. You can just sit and watch the kids play. Your problem is solved. So Disney does both of these things really, really well. Now back to some of those other theme parks. They make you feel good because they've got great roller coasters and they got awesome thrill rides. But you almost have to leave the park to get a decent meal. The experience is just not there. You can create an experience in any business. If you're selling industrial supplies, you can create an experience. I was speaking to a group in a breakfast program one morning about the customer experience, and I had a guy come up to me after the program, and he said, "I want to tell you that everything you just said is crap." He said, "Everything you just said is just so full of malarkey." He said, "I don't care if my employees create a customer experience. I want them to produce numbers." The lady standing right beside him fought my battle for me. I didn't have to say a thing to this guy. She said, "And this is why we don't buy from you anymore." And he was dumbstruck. He couldn't believe it. "What?" She said, "We don't buy from you because you don't believe in the customer experience." She said, I'm a buyer of nuts and bolts." She said, I've got what could be the most boring job in the world. And she said, "Everybody thinks I'm there to get the best price." She said, "It's true, but I'm also there to buy from the people who treat me well, who treat me like a human being and take an interest in me." And she said, "If there's a penny's difference, if there's a dollar's difference," she said, "I'm going to go with the people who are going to take care of my company." So you can create an experience in any type of business through answering these two central questions. Now, remember I said, don't try to be all things to all people. That's a mistake. But if you're like most startup entrepreneurs or most thinkers, you've got 1,007 ideas running through your brain. So what are you going to do? How do you address those things? Well, you don't want to be the shoe repair shop, auto body landscaper. Those three things just don't go together. It's like that old Sesame Street song. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Well, you want to search for something called adjacencies. Adjacencies are those things that are up close to your core one thing. Maybe your one thing is really fast oil changes. What's adjacent to an oil change? Well, it's not engine rebuilds. It's not full body off restorations. Maybe an adjacency would be tire rotations. Maybe it would be wiper blade changes. Maybe it would be cooling system flushes, tune-ups, changing spark plugs, belts, hoses, things like that. Because if you get too far away from your core one thing, you lose credibility with your customers. So think about your one thing. Answer these two questions. What problem are you solving? What good feeling are you creating? And then think about the things that are adjacent to that you could then add to your service offering or to your products as you go. Because if you don't do those things, eventually you're going to run out of steam and people may stop buying from you if you're just a one-trick pony. So how are we going to attract those customers? How are we going to go out and find those people who are most likely to buy from you? Well, we do this with marketing. So let me just give you the 3-minute MBA in terms of marketing. Think of your marketing as baking a cake. Most of the time when I say marketing, people think advertising. Take a look at this slide. You don't see the word advertising anywhere on there. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. If you're baking a marketing cake, you want all of these ingredients. to be in proportion. Because if you only throw one ingredient into a cake pan, put it in the oven, you may get a mess, but you're not going to get a cake. So you need the whole mix. Don't focus on just one thing. I want you to think about your product. Is it a product or a service? Is it something that people want? Is it something they need? Is it going to solve a problem? Is it going to make them feel good? Is it something they're willing to buy? Your price says a lot about your product. It says a lot about your marketing. It says, is this a premium product? Is it a luxury item? Or is it an economy item? Something on the very low end of the price scale. You can buy calculators out there that cost a few $100s, or you can go to the dollar store or the dime store, pick up a $1 calculator, and when it's done, you throw it away. You don't expect as much out of that $1 calculator as you do out of the $300 graphing calculator. So what does your price say about your product? And your price has to walk a very fine line too. Your price needs to be attractive enough that your customers are willing to pay for it. But it also needs to be profitable for you. You can have a very attractive price that makes you no money. You can also have a price that makes you lots of money, but nobody's willing to pay it because it's too high. There's an old saying in real estate that the 3 keys to successful real estate are location, location, location. And we've translated that into a business application in the last couple decades, that you need a good location to be successful. Well, your location needs to be not necessarily a physical location, but you need to be where your customers expect you to be. And if you have done a good job defining your customers, defining your market, finding out where they are, you can put your business in a visible place, whether it's online, whether it's a blog or social media or a website or a physical location, maybe a billboard. But you got to put it somewhere where people are looking for you. Once you do that, you're going to have success. You have to be findable. Let me just say this too about websites. I see a lot of people say, well, I don't need a website in my type of business. Websites don't work for my business. Or I don't need social media. True. A lot of people dink around with social media and don't really do anything with it that's productive. But you do need a website, if only for this reason. Your website may never make you money. You may never sell a single product on your website. But if your customers are looking for you and they don't find you, you're out of the running before you even started. You have to be visible, and having a website tells people that you are serious about what you're doing. So you can do this for free. You can go to a site like Weebly, W-E-E-B-L-Y, Weebly.com, or Wix, which is W-I-X.com. You can go to one of those websites or just Google free website builders, and those are the two really well-established big kids on the block, and I like them a lot because in just a few minutes you can have a very simple website set up. And you absolutely have to have that. That's one of the places you need to be. Now, your promotion is divided into 2 different things. One is paid, and if you pay for it, by definition, that's advertising. So you can see how small a piece of this ingredient mix advertising is. Now, you can also get free stuff, free promotion, and that's publicity or public relations. When someone says something nice about you, or you run a press release or something like that, or you're featured in a news segment, that's promotion. Promotion's great. Word of mouth is great if you get good word of mouth. But you can't control word of mouth. So I'm not a big fan of word of mouth as a marketing strategy. Yes, do everything right. Try to get people to say nice things about you, but don't count on it. What you can count on over there on the left side, you'll see, is referrals and testimonials. I was working with a wedding photographer, and we were trying to just boost her business simply by using referrals and testimonials. Now, the testimonials was easy because She had lots of pictures that she could put in her portfolio, but the referrals was a little more difficult because she was kind of timid. She was not afraid to jump in there and take the pictures, but asking for more business was tough for her. So what I suggested was that as everyone else was leaving and she was packing up, try to find the mother of the bride or family member of the bride or someone who is either related to the bride or affiliated with her or has something to do with the organization of the wedding, and just say, were you happy with the way things went? Well, if you stood between the bride and groom and the preacher during the wedding, things probably didn't go so well. But if you went largely unnoticed and they're pretty happy with you, excuse me, and if you ask then, hey, can you be thinking about someone else who might be having a wedding coming up, and how can I help those folks? They're happy. It's been a great day, and they're probably going to be willing to start thinking about names. That way, when you deliver the proofs, you can say, look, I remember us talking about this the day of the wedding. Do you think I could get a list of 3 to 5 names of people who I might be able to help out? And sure enough, people were super willing to give those names and phone numbers and say, yeah, tell them I told you to call. They were extremely happy about that. So she was able to, for no money, build her referral network. And then last but not least is people. You can have great products, prices, be easily accessible, and promote your product or services the right way. But if you've got a crabby attitude, or if you have people who are unhappy, it washes away everything else that you've done, and it wastes all the money you've spent. So be thinking about these 5 things, and be thinking about them in proportion, not just on one ingredient, but on all of these. And then by all means, learn to sell. Read books, watch DVDs, go to YouTube like the web designer I was telling you about, take courses. Whatever you have to do to learn to sell is going to be the most important skill you can learn. You may be great at your craft or your art or your hobby. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to sell what you make or what you do, and nothing happens until you sell it. So, to bring all of this together as we wrap up here, you need a business plan. You need something that's going to tell you, is the business going to work? Maybe I should just keep this as a hobby. Maybe it will never, ever make money. And I'm better off just enjoying it and not trying to make money with it. So you need that feasibility test. You also need it as a communication tool. You need to be able to tell your friends and family that you're not crazy. Just because you don't want to go out and get another job doesn't mean you're insane. So the business plan says, here's the way I've thought this out, and here's why it's going to be a success. You may have other folks who want to see this as well. Lenders definitely want to see your business plan. It's a big communication tool for them because it shows them on paper what has been rattling around in your head for a long time, and it says this is how they're going to turn this into a money-making venture. So obviously you need it to get financing, but that's not the first thing on the list. It's a lot easier to test the feasibility on paper before you spend the money, because it gets very expensive if you do it the other way around. If you look over in the chat section, I've given you 2 links that you can download a quick 1-page business plan outline. It may take you more than 1 page to actually write the business plan, but this is a good outline of things that you need to put into your plan. So click on that, go ahead and download that PDF, and use that as your quick start guide to writing a business plan. It's going to ask you some of the same questions we've talked about today. And your business plan doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to tell your story. And the other link there is that you can download these slides. So if these slides would be helpful to you, go ahead and click there. I'll leave this up for a little while, and you can go ahead and download this slide deck. This will also, it's been recorded, so we'll be able to give you access to play this back at any time. And so here's some ways that you can connect with Premier Entrepreneurship Group. You can find us online at our website. This is unfortunately, this is a rental car website. It's this is the temporary holding website while our other website is being constructed. So this gives you some information about us and the different things that we have coming up. So we do have an upcoming events section there. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and I'll always be trying to put some upcoming events and some things of interest to you there. But I'm Russ Siegel with Premier Entrepreneurship Group, and if there's any way that I can answer questions for you, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording of the webinar now. I encourage you to go over to your chat section. If you need to leave us, we've been here an hour, and so I'll completely understand, and I thank you for joining us today. But if you have anything that you'd like to ask about or like me to address further, go ahead and include that in the chat section, and I will address that, and look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.